Let me know when we're recording.
Stand by.
Kenmore City Council is now in session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1-1I. The City Council will now enter an executive session to discuss pending or potential litigation. The session is slated to conclude at 7 p.m.
And for our guests in the audience, as you just observed, the council did move into the executive session suite. They're holding an executive session to discuss pending or potential litigation. And they hope to conclude that at 7 p.m. Of course, they may extend, but that's the information we have right now. Thanks for standing by. And it looks like the executive session has concluded and the council is taking a very short break before they begin again at 7 p.m.
(7 o'clock). Should we start recording?
We are recording.
Okay. Kenmore City Council is leaving the executive session. No action is going to be taken. We're now going to adjourn the special meeting and call the regular meeting to order. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Shrubnik,
Here.
Councilmember Kugler,
Here.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane,
Present.
Councilmember File,
Present.
Councilmember Baker,
Here.
Mayor Herbig,
Here.
and Councilmember Marshall has been excused.
If you'd all please join me in the flag salute. Allegiance to the flag
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Unless there's any, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, it's late. Unless, what is what I'm looking for?
Objections?
Yes, thank you. Objections, geez. Unless there's any objections, the agenda will stand approved as published. Seeing no objections, the agenda stands approved.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
may, for just a second. I have got COVID and I am going to turn my camera off, but I will certainly be present and vocal at the meeting.
Thank you for letting us know. Next on the agenda, just for the public's sake, I'm going to let you know that I will be handing the gavel over to the deputy mayor for this presentation because my day job is at the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, and I try to make sure that there's no conflict of interest there. So in that role, I don't do anything related to the city of Kenmore, and in this role, I don't do anything related to the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. So I'm going to hand over the gavel to the deputy mayor, and I will return when this presentation is done.
Thank you, Mayor. So now on to the presentation. King County Regional Homelessness Authority, King County Regional Homelessness Authority update presented by Sub-Regional Planning Manager, Alexis Mercedes Rink.
Good evening, Council. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here before you tonight. I'm going to share my screen and ask the obligatory question. Can you see my screen? Can folks see my screen? I'm sorry.
Your screen.
Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm just really pleased to be, especially in front of the council that's taken such amazing action lately in support of affordable housing. So just wanted to start with gratitude on that point. I'm here tonight to speak about strengthening regional partnership and share a bit more about the King County Regional Homelessness Authority's work and bring before you a proposal. So getting into a little bit more about who we are, what we do. Our core mission is to significantly decrease the incidence of homelessness throughout King County using equity and social justice principles. And our core theory of change is that if we create a homelessness response system that centers the voices of those with lived experience of homelessness, then we'll be able to focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequities in order to end homelessness for all. We were formed in 2019 through an interlocal agreement between King County and the city of Seattle, effectively consolidating contracts and centralizing homelessness response. And in our founding interlocal agreement, it describes our role and scope as the following. We are charged with unified planning and coordination for funding and services for folks experiencing homelessness countywide. We have oversight on policy, contract management, and performance management. We have continuum of care functions as required by HUD. So we are the continuum of care lead agency. This is responsibility that was formerly housed within All Home. We also were charged with the creation of a new ombuds office to serve as a single point of accountability for folks using services. And we also were charged with establishing clear metrics and milestones for measuring success and ensuring accountability and transparency in our system. I wanted to include this handy graphic here because it's a good guide as to what has been maintained and still held by City of Seattle and King County and what has come over to us. By a large part, housing capital and development are still responsibilities and activities that are held by the City of Seattle and King County. However, we are lead on continuum of care funded programs, funding and oversight over shelter, diversion, rapid rehousing, coordinated entry system, the homelessness management information system, also known as HMIS, as well as playing a role in outreach. However, we are not a participant in encampment cleans or explicitly around behavioral health and crisis response. So before I really go into the rest of my presentation today, I do want to ground everybody in some of the work and findings that my team, the sub-regional planning team, has been able to find, particularly about the North King County subregion. And so in North King County, and these are numbers official as of March 2022, this is our current breakdown of emergency shelter beds, permanent supportive housing, permanent housing beds, and transitional housing beds and units. So looking across, this is an aggregate of just shy of 300 beds across these three program types. And going a little bit into about the service providers that are serving the North King County subregion, we have 8 service providers serving North King County. And I want to take a moment to highlight a win in our work, which isn't always often, but as you can see, we don't have the bar for Camp Unity East Side is non-existent. We don't currently have any beds listed because the sanctioned encampment has seen so much success through our emergency housing voucher program that the vast majority of those folks have now secured housing with their voucher, and that encampment is resolving. So just want to take a moment to celebrate that, but also highlight we have a number of other service providers serving the North King County subregion, whether it be through emergency shelter, transitional housing, permanent housing, or day centers. Within the homelessness management information system, which really is kind of our database of all folks that are accessing services, we have a data point that we're able to look to called the City of Last Residence. City of Last Residence, when folks are enrolling in services, they will mark what their City of Last Residence was. And so we did a poll of all folks who were present in, who marked a North King County city, which is inclusive of Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, Bothell, Kenmore, and Woodinville. All of those folks are included here and are active in HMIS. Now, this does not entirely necessarily mean that an individual represented in these bars is necessarily receiving services from one of the North King County service providers, but they're active in HMIS and did mark a North King County city as their last city of residence. And the various bars mark the different program types that we capture within HMIS. So rapid rehousing and prevention programs, coordinated entry, which allows for a pathway for permanent housing placement, currently within permanent housing, emergency shelter and transitional housing, services only or others, often related to hygiene centers or day centers, and then those who are being captured and engaging with street outreach. So what's bringing me forward to you all tonight is really a way to strengthen our partnership. And what I'm bringing forward to you all is not necessarily a novel idea. And so the proposal I'm bringing before you really resembles in many ways the sub-regional collaborations that already exist, like a Regional Coalition for Housing or ARCH, or the South King County Homelessness and Housing Partners Program, also known as SKIP. What we are looking at is something that would be rooted in a sub-regional approach and is really tied to what does it mean to pool funding related to homelessness response. And the proposal that I'm bringing forward to you has been largely worked on by the North King County Coalition on Homelessness. To provide a little bit of background into what that group is all about, this was originally convened a few years ago to identify a space to establish the Aurora Oaks shelter, currently now located in Shoreline. Its core purpose is to facilitate working across sectors and jurisdictions in North King County, to support policies and community-based efforts to provide services and housing options for those in North King County experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness. There are government partners who are present and a part of the body. So there is a representative of each one of the 5 listed North King County cities that sits on the coalition. And then we also have non-governmental partners who are part of the space as well. And so those are inclusive of of our faith-based partners, the Healthcare for the Homeless Care Network, Hope Link, the Interfaith Task Force on Homelessness, Lake City Partners Ending Homelessness, and other behavioral health partners as well. And so a bit about our timeline and how we were getting here. Our timeline, we really started this conversation in January. We started talking about the idea of avenues for partnership with North King County city staff throughout January and February. And in March, that's when we brought forward and presented to the North King County Coalition on Homelessness the concept of pooling funding through an interlocal agreement. And that body provided some feedback and guidance. And throughout April and May, staff reviewed and incorporated that feedback from the coalition. And in June, that's when myself and some North King County city staff, we co-presented a proposal on the idea of a North King County interlocal agreement and got some unanimous affirmation from the coalition to move forward and having these conversations with council and to continue refining the proposal. And so tonight I am here to begin and to propose and to begin the conversation about what it would mean for the North King County cities and the King County Regional Homelessness Authority to be partnered through pooled funding. Many cities grant funding to local service providers, many of which are already contracted with the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. And we want to be working towards the same outcomes and be aligned in our goals. And more than that, we want to be a resource to jurisdictions in support of their homelessness response. So overall, we believe that through pooled funding and homelessness response, we'll be improving transparency, efficiency, and accountability. And I'd like to talk through these areas and then get into some of the mechanics. So our first area, just in transparency, part of this agreement would really include an annual report, I should say at minimum, to city councils, including metrics such as that HMIS origin city data, the North King County, the North King County sub-regional outcomes and activities that the sub-regional planning team would be working on, as well as progress on funding administration and distribution. I should say that we would be able and willing and eager to provide more than just one annual report. We're always available for additional presentations and reports per request. We really just want to be able to serve as a resource for jurisdictions. Further getting into the next area around efficiency, so we are really looking at with efficiency contract consolidation. We're looking at a bit of eased administrative burden for our providers, as well as for other public funders. It's one less grants management system for the providers to navigate. We're looking at streamlined funding and contract management. And I believe we are actually contracted with all of our North King County service providers already. So many of the service providers that we had listed in North King County are already under contract and using our Flex Grants Management System with us. And the last area under accountability, we believe that an ILA will support improved accountability through really defining what the relationship between the King County Regional Homelessness Authority and partnering cities are. We would be reporting on funding distribution, and overall, we would also have a lot better metrics about our success and our effectiveness. We would be able to say with much greater confidence what the impact of all the public funding was for North King County as a subregion. And so getting into the mechanics piece of how this would work. We are looking at, particularly with a focus on the left side, given that Kenmore is a city that is currently contributing to and providing funding for local service providers, with respect to the fact that we know that for 2023-2024, there are already RFPs out in the works. We would be looking at the upcoming budget cycle. That funding amount and whatever that award amount was would remain the same. And we will be looking at 2025-2026 instead of funding allocation earmarked to the King County Regional Homeless Authority. Now to the right really describes that there are a couple of North King County cities that are currently not contributing funding or not providing funding to homelessness response. By taking the average per capita amount across North King County cities, we found that currently the contribution is about $1.20 per capita. Kenmore's exact contribution explicitly on homelessness response is exactly $1.20. And I want to emphasize with this piece, in this whole proposal, we are not talking about new dollars. We are not seeking additional funding specifically from Kenmore or any of the current cities that are already putting towards funding towards homelessness response. So granting out money to local service providers. We want to honor those current investments into homelessness response. That part really to the right is to acknowledge that there are a couple of jurisdictions that are not currently contributing or providing this kind of funding. And so we wanted to put together a recommendation from that based on the average across the other cities. So it's really a recommended metric of what it would mean to essentially provide to this contribute funding. So really to hone into the local authority piece, we are looking at for the 2023-2024 funding year, cities who have made funding awards, those will be maintained in amount, but that contract theoretically would shift over to us and we would become the administrators of it. So really just an administrative step. And the last kind of technical area I'd want to discuss is related to just duration and withdrawal. We're proposing a 4-year agreement to cover the next 2 financial years, so 2023 to 2024, 2025, 2026. And to just be very explicit, withdrawal from this agreement would look like a 90-day written notice provided to all other parties of the agreement. So to be also very clear about who would be assignees of the agreement, this would not just be an agreement theoretically between Kenmore and the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, but rather Kenmore, Shoreline, Bothell, Lake Forest Park, and Woodinville, and the authority. So all of the North King County cities being a part of an agreement with us. And so in many ways, I'm hoping that tonight will be the start of this conversation. I'm eager to hear any and all feedback, eager to hear questions. And from that point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just would really love to hear from the council about any thoughts or questions you all have. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alexis, for your always thorough presentation and the good work you do. We'd like to open up for questions. Council members, do we have any questions today?
Deputy Mayor, this is Councilmember Baker.
Oh, Councilmember Baker, please.
Alexis, is this, how big, there's a couple of questions here. How big is the Regional Homeless Housing Authority? How many staff members?
We're just over 60 as of today.
Okay. Who's your governing body?
We have a governing committee that is composed of folks representing 4 different caucus areas. We have representatives from King County Council, the Sound Cities Association, Seattle City Council, and those with lived experience.
Does this got anything to do with the Regional Housing Authority that I co-chaired a few years ago? Is this an offshoot from that?
It is not an offshoot from that. That was the Affordable Housing Committee. And I know you did work on the task force as well. Affordable Housing Committee. Yep.
No, just curious. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember File.
A question about the notice for withdrawal, duration and withdrawal. I'm comfortable with the duration. I'm wondering about the withdrawal being 90 days. And I think I would feel more comfortable with that being 120 days, given the state of the housing crisis and what it's like to work with our partners in tandem.
I think that's a doable recommendation. Thank you, Councilmember.
Do we have any other? Oh, Councilmember Shrevenick.
Yeah, I think you touched on this. Hello. So so even though we are not, Kenmore is not currently directly funding KCRHA for X or Y. I mean, we are contributing to homeless response. And so that's sort of counting toward what you're talking about. Is that, yeah, okay. Just wanted to underscore that point. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Councilmember Kugler.
I was wondering if you could expand on, I think you covered this in previous presentations, but it's been a while. So the current amount that is already earmarked is going to be moved under your administration. Is that right?
So it's my understandings as you all head into your budget for the incoming year, you would be making an award amount at that time to your local service providers. Under this proposal, that award amount, whatever it may be, and to whoever it may be, starting in 2023, we would just be the administrators of it. So we would just honor whatever that award amount is and carry over that contract. Starting in the following year, the following cycle, we would be looking at an earmark.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Councilmember File.
I noticed Kirkland isn't part of this agreement. For some reason, I thought they were considering it. Had they not yet joined the ILA, or are they still working on it?
Fantastic question. Thank you. We are moving forward with an East King County ILA in which Kirkland is a part of those conversations. And so we're having similar parallel conversations with East King County. So really focused on the 5 core cities over there, Bellevue, Issaquah, Sammamish, Kirkland, Redmond, for that type of agreement.
Great, thank you.
Deputy Mayor, another question.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes. If you are considering the east side, since we're in the east side for Arch, we're in the east side for transportation, we're in the east side for a number of different committees and organizations, why are we not on the east side with your group?
It's a good question. I think we're really looking to the fact that in following the North King County City's leadership, you all formed the North King County Coalition on Homelessness. And it's my understanding that was the kind of shared agreement that is the space where you all talk about homelessness for North King County. And so I think we were following your leadership on that one.
Okay. Yeah. There's another organization out there that was heading that up, correct? Nusha is what I know them as, but it's another organization that has been working on homeless that we sort of became part of. But again, we're tagged with the east side for a number of different things, and so is Bothell and so is Woodinville. So that's why I'm just sort of wondering why we're not on the east side where we are for everything else. And you say it's because we started something with this Nusha. So, okay. I still think we should be on the east side where we are with everything else, though.
Understood. We do work closely with NUSA. NUSA is a part of the North King County Coalition on Homelessness as well. And to be also very clear, Councilmember Baker, this is open for discussion. If Kenmore would like to have a conversation and go join in with the East King County cities and conversations related to their ILA, we have no problem with that. Yeah, I open to that feedback. I know there's been similar conversations or points about that raised by Woodinville specifically.
So I guess I'm just curious then. I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Baker. I was just going to share my experience and how it bridged to the North King County Regional Homelessness Authority, sub-region, excuse me. But please ask your question. I thought you were done.
So I'm just curious then, the fact that we are a member of Arch and we contribute money to them and we get something in return in that we're using Arch to build some much needed affordable housing, the 30% level here. What will we get from your organization? I mean, in reality, that's what we're concerned about, is what will our taxpayers get for the money?
100%. There will be some improved administration of the funding. There would be some more streamlinedness. We also hope to serve, and it's our understanding, and I know Arch serves as a resource in providing expertise to jurisdictions that want to move forward in projects related to affordable housing. We would be a liaison and support for projects and programs related to homelessness response. We'd be able to provide much improved information about folks that may be experiencing homelessness and housing instability in Kenmore. And there's something also about this effort that's about how can we greater align the region and have a more centralized and less fragmented response to homelessness.
That would be interesting if you can actually pull it off.
We're gonna try. Thank you, Mayor Baker. Pardon me, Councilmember Baker.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to your success. And Councilmember Baker and for others, we did start with the NUSA North King County, I think it was shelter. It was related to building a shelter. I'm just missing the acronym right now. But we started there, and as we were working through that, Kenmore and Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, Woodinville, and Bothell were identified as, especially I'd say in Kenmore, that we didn't have a connection for homelessness, and that we thought that we as a region could come together where there were other, I think East Side and cities, there were other regions that were already established, but North King County hadn't been, and there was opportunity for us to participate. And that's actually at the root of it. And so it actually kind of organically formed through that activity.
Yeah, I remember when you went on that committee. That was good.
Yeah, and this was the outcome of that. Yes. Do we have any other questions for Alexis? Well, I do genuinely wish you and our region the success with the work that you're doing for homelessness that we are working on together, and looking forward to the fruits of this important work. Thank you so much for presenting to us today, and I look forward to your next update.
Thank you all so much for your time. Have a wonderful evening and a great meeting.
Thank you. And Mayor Baker is back. I mean, Mayor Herbig, excuse me.
All right, next on the agenda is public comment. We welcome our community members to the council's meeting. In this forum, the council does not engage or dialogue with the public. The primary role of the council is to listen. We'll hear from our on-site guests first, followed by our virtual guests. If you are online, please use the raise hand feature now if you wish to speak. All guests must address their comments to the mayor and city council. The clerk will acknowledge your request and call your name when it is your turn. Your time will start when we confirm that we can hear you. Please state your name and city of residence for the record, and keep your comments to the allotted time. We will not split your time with others or reset your time except by express approval of the presiding officer. Screen sharing is not allowed. You can submit materials to the council or clerk in advance. Please do not comment about pending development projects on which the council will make future decisions, as those are quasi-judicial matters, and council members must limit their communications about such matters. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you for taking the time to express your comments. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 members of the public that would like to speak tonight. The order of the speakers will be Carl Michaelman, followed by John Peoples. Mr. Michaelman, please approach the podium and to speak.
Council, Carl Michaelman, business owner that owns property in Kenmore and a non-resident according to Karina File. And essentially, for the fact there, Nigel, there are conflicts with you, with this affordable housing, with all the tenant rights, what you do for work, there is a conflict. So just taking off for this certain position is just unbelievable. Anyway, you guys are going to be talking about a cable tax. You're talking on both sides here. We got to take care of homelessness. We got to take care of tenants' rights. We got to make affordable housing. Okay. Then all of a sudden, you're going to go ahead and talk about putting a tax on the cable services that the people in affordable housing and everything else is using. There's a franchise fee. It's all smoke and mirrors what you guys are doing. Okay. What you're doing is smoke and mirrors. A franchise fee is a tax on the cable. It's 5%. Now you want to put another 6% on? That's 11%. Do the arithmetic. 1 + 1 does not equal 3. For some reason you think so. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's getting to a point where you're not listening again to the people. You have all this homelessness, all this affordable housing, and then you want to give another tax to the people if they're in the affordable housing. If they're in the affordable housing, they're going to get cable services. How can you look us straight in the eye? And lastly, look at this room. There's nobody here. And your thought process, in my opinion, unless you want to prove me wrong, because nobody's in this room, that the people don't care and you can just do it, because if they really cared, they would say something. Am I boring you, Councilwoman File? Because you're not looking at me, you're just going ahead and doing your other stuff. And this is exactly what I mean. Mayor, put a gavel down to her. This is ridiculous. I'm talking to you people, and she can't even look at me straight in the eye. You put this tax in, you go ahead and do it. You're not here for the people. You're not. You're here for just keeping business going with this place. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. How do you tax somebody on cable services and say you care about affordable housing? How do you do it? How do you look in the mirror and see each other? That's all I have to say. Think about it. Thank you.
Next to speak is Mr. Peoples.
John Peoples, Kenmore. Good evening, Kenmore City Council. I come before you this evening to remind you that many of your Kenmore neighbors were disappointed by your resolution 2 weeks ago regarding the glorious U.S. Supreme Court Dobbs decision. It would have been far more becoming a mature and decent city council and far less insulting to many in the community had you simply waited until tonight to discuss the matter and allow those who celebrate the Dobbs decision to share with you their opposition to your action. As it is, I have contacted the local state senator and our congressional misrepresentatives to let them know that they should disregard your rather panicky, petulant temper tantrum of a resolution as it was passed in ambush fashion and with great disregard for decent civic engagement. Further, I appeal to what is left of your sense of civic decency and pass a resolution expressing your solidarity with the owners and employees of CareNet Kenmore, which was vandalized last week. CareNet Kenmore does God's work in caring for both patients, the mother and her preborn baby. Surely you don't condone violence against your Kenmore neighbors. Well, this is your chance to prove it and ensure that the decent people of CareNet Kenmore know that they are welcome in the community. And remember, only women can get pregnant, not men. A delusion among a few does not make a reality for the many. In other business, I once again ask you to delete the link to the white supremacy pyramid from our city's website. There is no room for this hateful racist propaganda on our municipal website. If you do not have the courage to remove it, the day will come when a refreshed city council will conjure up the courage to do so. Also, I'd like to ask you to dispense with this cable TV utility tax. You have plenty of our money as it is, and we are tired of you treating us like your civic ATM. Lastly, over the weekend, I noticed that our national flag was flying at half-staff here at City Hall. I'd like to ask you to make sure that in the future, such events are explained on the city's website so that the public knows. Summer concert series, good stuff, thank you. I'm looking forward to the bluegrass and the Hawaiian music. Coffee with the council, in person, please. Wishing Councilmember Baker a speedy recovery. And with respect to homeless, the purpose should be to partner with homeless individuals and their families to restore them to self-sufficiency and to eventually disband these authorities for lack of need. Thank you.
Mayor Herbeck, we have no other on-site guests wishing to speak. We will now move on to the virtual public comment.
Okay. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. At this point, I see 5 hands raised, and we will go ahead and promote you and take our guests in this order. John Culver, followed by Nancy at Glenwood Gardens, Stacy V, Elizabeth Mooney, Tiff Stoner. Mr. Culver?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can go ahead.
Great. 1 second here. Okay. Good evening, Council. I'm John Culver, proud residents. I just want to say quickly, in the spirit of concision and brevity, for the last time, maybe 1, 2, 3, initiatives. Thank you, Council. Don't pour any more concrete at Twin Springs.
Thank you, Mr. Culver. Nancy?
Hi, these are comments on missing middle zoning, and is that okay tonight, or did you want that next week? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
It's that I don't know. Well, I'll go ahead, I guess, with missing middle, unless you want that next week.
You can comment on that this week if you'd like.
Thank you. Okay. First, I want to say that there's still several issues that are not clear. One is that the new map, which shows zoning in nearly all parts of the city, but the May 17 flyer said it would be happening in some parts of Kenmore. And then I was also wondering why a few areas have been left out completely. So I just need answers to that before I can answer, decide anything. And then I do support adding more density for sure, but in a way that affordable housing can be part of the plan. So I like the idea of the talk tonight. A big issue I see is that what will be built on existing lots will not be affordable without being subsidized by the city. The idea I heard at a previous meeting to build a real public housing development is a smart solution. Taking up a smaller footprint, a site could be found that's better suited than many of the critical areas that can't tolerate more impervious surfaces. A public development is one that will solve the real problems, and people who want to get to work need a roof, food, and transportation. And Kenmore could make a huge contribution by considering such a plan. And tall buildings with a small footprint will definitely pay off for Kenmore. A second problem with the R6 zoning is targeting the transportation route through the Moorlands neighborhood. Much of the area is classified as critical land. Wetlands are not mapped here yet, or some are, a lot are, but not all of them. And important functions are performed by what still exists in this area. The tree canopy, wetlands, and streams left alone are of great value in preventing slides, especially when we are unable to accurately predict future weather patterns. And I'm going to send information on what I found in the Kenmore Comprehensive Plan on the geologic, makeup of the soil, and it just makes sense to save the wetlands. And then let's see, that another reason I'm concerned about the route through the moorlands, and depending on the bus that's there, is that it does not take people to places of work. I mean, it goes east to, and probably if you worked at Evergreen Hospital or some of the health facilities in that area, it would work. But I think we need the bus route going north-south to get people to work. Linwood would be a better area, or south. And then last, I have talked to several people, and nobody seems to know about this. And I feel the citizens need to be more aware. Someone even mentioned that there should be signs up all over for a big zoning change like this.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Stacy Valenzuela.
Hi, Stacy Valenzuela. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
And I'm from Kenmore. Residents have been filing odor complaints and pleading with the city for over 15 years to assist with their health and well-being from the odor and effects of the asphalt and concrete plants. Residents saw little action except more residents' illness, more odor, and darker soot on their homes until 2019, when we, the residents, lobbied for more action from the city, state, and PSCAA. We need PSCAA and the city to adopt and enforce the draft permit 11861 with the stipulations limiting the petroleum binder products. Now, we call for Kenmore to hold off in permitting to developers, review adopting stronger zoning training, review the ordinance intentions, implementing protection and preserving our natural resources. 20 to 25 short plat townhouse units priced at 1.2 to 1.7 million each, labeled missing middle, are being allowed via permits on the lots, which are not attainable to middle or lower class. Restoring of the creeks, land, wetlands, shoreline, and natural habitat, tree canopy, and ecosystems, decrease the effect of greenhouse gases and other toxins in our climate. This is part of implementing the Climate Action Plan, the Climate Commitment Act 1099, and climate change. We need limitations on destroying our resources. Governor Inslee called for adding the Climate Commitment Act and made available 2.3 million grants funds to support early implementation and adoption of the 1099 in cities' comp plans. 3 of those actions are highlights that Kenmore needs and can easily implement. Affordable housing, you're already on the way for all economic segments of our population, as well as preserving the existing housing. Social justice, improved transparency, inclusion and support of all residents and businesses, and increase the public hearing notices. Model policy, Tree Canopy Act, which you're already working on now with the heat island impacts, maintain and enhance our natural habitat and resources. Items on tonight's agenda address and support these issues. We need you to adopt and our city staff to implement these changes. And by the way, I'm canceling my cable. I'd also like to know what exactly is the bench on 522 that was discussed. And I understood the city was supposed to stay neutral on development. So why is there a request for the council to support vector development? What about the residents and businesses of Kenmore? Shouldn't we be a priority? Thank you for consideration tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Valenzuela. Elizabeth Mooney.
Hi, Council. I think my computer's working, but it was making some static. So just stop me if it doesn't sound right, please, Anastasia. But you can hear me okay right now?
Yep.
Thank you. Hi, Council. My name's Elizabeth Mooney. I'm from Kenmore. And I want to first say Happy July. And I support some of my citizens' comments. I want to thank John Culver for all the work that he put into the Citizens Initiative. And I want to thank the council for supporting that. And the celebration at the hangar was fabulous. Yay, John Culver, thank you. I want to support Nancy Hansen's comments, especially about tree canopy, wetlands, and streams being protected. And I think the idea to have some signs put up to let some folks that are not as involved know that we're making huge decisions, that would be very important. I think you'll get more populated audience at council meetings. And it's great to see you there, by the way. And I want to thank Stacey Valenzuela for keeping up the focus on the asphalt emissions and our shoreline at Lake Point and Cal Portland, where certainly I wish there was restoration and access for the public. But also, I'm here to say that regarding the trees that are part of the sidewalk development on 61st Avenue Northeast, which is next to Chetchathel or Raya 080056, a stream that Lockwood Elementary and PERC has been trying to protect for a couple decades. I implore the council to preserve all the trees on that street that you can, even if it costs more money. They are not replaceable in our lifetime. Not only are they good for the environment, but they also protect our value of our houses, and they give us what we need in aesthetics and environmental protection, riparian zone protection of stream 0056. And just don't cut those. If you need to see what the city of Seattle has done, look at the Ravenna area, and I can take you to the Christmas tree lighted area that has put big old sidewalks in to protect old trees. And that made a big difference in the value of that community. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Tiff Stoner followed by Janet Hayes.
Hi, council member. I am fairly new to Kenmore. I actually close on the house in 1 year from tomorrow. So fairly new to Kenmore, but I didn't want to say something initially, but after seeing some comments, I just want to say as a resident of Kenmore, I do appreciate what Kenmore has done. It's I moved here from Redmond. I'm actually still very involved with Redmond City Council with the long-term plan. My kids are still going to school out there, work there, but I would love to have more roots set in Kenmore. So I'm trying to find ways to connect. And one other thing I do want to appreciate is mayor's been very active on social media, and that's how I find out a lot of what's going on in Kenmore. And I think for younger generations, a different method of communication has been easier to get to know. But I'm trying to learn more about the long-term range planning, specifically with affordable housing and missing middle. That's been an issue Redmond deal with, and I know Kenmore is similarly dealing with something like that. And as someone that's lived here, that diversity is important. I want to be able to support people that are caring for my kids, people that are, healthcare workers, firefighters, policemen. I want them to be able to live in the city that I live in. And that's very important to me. And overall, seeing what the city's been doing, I'm very pleased and very happy that I'm living in a city that's making a focus to make sure that city is inviting to all. And lastly, I just want to say, as a mother and as a woman, it was tough for the last couple of weeks. And as someone that had child older in age that had difficulty, that woman reproductive rights was something that was very hard to see, that with the Dubs decision that went away. And I applaud my city to stand by women and also by all people that with reproductive rights. That's important to me. And I appreciate and applaud the city council putting out a proclamation in support of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Turner. Janet Hayes. Ms. Hayes, can you hear us? Janet Hayes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
My name is Janet Hayes, and I am a resident of Kenmore. I wanted to share with you my last week. I've been on many walks, including Twin Springs, and looking at the wetlands, looking at the borders. I would suggest that the council, each one of you, walk through there and then look at the planning for that. They are in phase 1. My next stop was Lagoon Park, and I was shocked that over half of it is cement. I'm having a hard time believing that the council can see our entire Kenmore population ever deciding to go to the one shoreline that we have available on Lake Washington. I just think that was terrible. Then I went to Harbor Village Marina, where I spoke to the harbor master, and he told me that they were still concerned regarding the sediment depth at their marina and the fact nothing has happened since dioxins were found there as far as dredging or cleaning it up. The same thing at Chip Davidson's North Shore Marina. Then I went to Kenmore Air, which I take pictures of every time we have a heavy rain. The lake comes up onto the property to their door, where the public walks in to purchase their tickets. They've got ramps where they go out to the pier. They now have a new deck, which I never saw a public notice that they would be putting something there. because we do know that that soil has been contaminated with dioxins. That is a problem. One of the last thoughts, I do have more, but the Full House, a new restaurant that's going to open in Kenmore, we just happened upon someone there, the owner, who said that the city had contacted her about buying her property. I don't understand how the city can be doing that kind of business without letting people know what is happening, what have you got planned, and how are you going to do it? Or how do you expect to do it?
Thank you very much, Ms. Hayes.
Thank you. Bye.
Mayor Herbig, I don't see any additional hands.
All right, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So approved. Councilmember File.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The consent agenda stands approved unanimously. Next on the agenda is the business agenda. First item, ordinance number 22-0546, amending Kenmore Municipal Code Section 3.35, utility tax to include cable television business as an occupation subject to tax for adoption. And presenting will be Ms. Salcido.
Your mic.
Is your mic turned on?
So good evening, Honor. Yes, Mayor and Council members. So the item before you for your review and consideration is an amendment to the ordinance to include a cable utility tax in the amount of 6%. This cable utility tax is part of the revenue enhancement measures that were approved in the financial sustainability plan in 2020. The revenue improvement, the revenue enhancement of the cable utility tax in the amount of 6% is to be used to improve the city's financial performance, be able to meet the increasing government services, the increasing cost in government services. The first reading of this ordinance was on June the 21st, at which time I had a slide with the comparison of the various utility taxes in neighboring cities. So one of the supporting this increase in, or this new cable utility tax, is the fact that the city's utility tax per capita is the second lowest in comparison to all the other cities listed in this slide. As you can see, the city does not have cable utility tax, a water utility tax, sewer, storm, and I can't see the last one, solid waste. Now, with regards to the amount of so with regards to the 6%, I wanted to show what that equates to. And according to this price listing from Xfinity, there are three, at this point in time in January, there were three packages, I guess: Choice, Popular, and Ultimate. The Ultimate is the most expensive of the packages at $88.50, and the 6% on $88.50 would be $5.31. It should be noted that the cable utility tax is only on cable services and not on internet. Of course, this amount would be higher if the package includes enhanced programming such as HBO and some other services available to the public.
Councilmember Sharpnick.
Yeah, you said something that I just want to make sure, maybe it's just underscoring what you said, but my impression is that some people do get their internet through their cable provider. Is that correct? And if so, this is still only on the television part of that? Is that correct?
And that is correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
I believe we might have an issue with the screen share right now. Any other questions? Oh, Councilmember File.
Thank you. So for our community, the tax revenue that would be received from this tax, if applied and if passed tonight, would go to fund what? Now, what does it pay for our community so they could understand?
Oh, of course. So this revenue will be part of the general fund, which funds services, everything related, everything that is not, for example, surface water. So that's your governmental services, your parks, your recreation, your support services such as council, clerk, manager. So it includes all the general fund services.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Baker.
Yes. So then if I use a cable service, I will be taxed for my TV usage, the cable part of that. If I stream my TV, I won't be taxed. If I use a satellite dish, I won't be taxed. So we are only taxing cable users. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Not seeing any more questions right now. Was that?
That completes my presentation.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions? Councilmember File.
Looking at the financial package review update from your department in the consent agenda earlier today, it seems like we're on a appropriate track for projecting income, actually even ahead. So I have to really wonder, is this really a necessary tax at this time?
Excellent question. So what it is that this is assisting in our forecast. We're trying to meet the increasing costs and services such as, for example, our police services contract, which is increasing 500,000 next year. So this is part of building up our revenues base in order to be able to afford the increase in the cost of those services.
Councilmember Kugler.
Just based off of the content of the PowerPoint, I'm wondering, was there discussion also about some of the other utilities? And do you know if, or are you familiar if there was any discussion as to why the decision was to recommend cable versus like water, sewer, stormwater, or solid waste?
From the report, which was dated 2020, there was a discussion of various utilities at this point in time. I'm not sure what transpired. Maybe our city manager can enlighten us as to how that came about back in 2020. Yes.
Your Honor, if I may. And my recollection was that of the different utility taxes, this is, or the different utility services, this is the most discretionary among our residents as opposed to water, sewer, electric. And given that it was most discretionary, the task force thought it would be more appropriate than others.
Yeah, speaking for myself, I don't think I'd be supporting like a water or sewer tax personally, but this is something that people have other options for television. They can get it free over the air and or they can stream it. And it's not internet also, which I frankly view as more of a utility than cable television personally. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 22-0546, amending Kenmore Municipal Code, section 3.35, utility tax to include cable television business as an occupation subject to tax.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, would the clerk please take the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Herbig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shrubnik,
Yes.
Councilmember File,
No.
Councilmember Kugler,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
No.
Councilmember Baker.
No.
I believe the motion fails.
I counted 4 too.
Yeah, I counted 4.
Yeah.
Two,
Counted the
three.
deputy mayor, myself, and Councilmember Shrubnik and Kugler. in
Oh, I
favor.
see. I see. Correct. Okay. With 4 in favor, the motion does pass and the ordinance is adopted.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, engrossed second House Bill 1099 addressing climate change and the comprehensive plan update presented by Community Development Director Debbie Bent, Environmental Services Manager Richard Sawyer, and City Engineer John Vicente, and Principal Planner Lori Anderson. Got everybody.
We're promoting our staff right now.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. So a legislation didn't pass this year on climate action, but Council was interested in what the city would be doing to incorporate similar items as the city moves forward with its comprehensive plan update. So I would ask Laurie Anderson to kind of step through how the city will be addressing climate action in the upcoming comprehensive plan update. And Richard Sawyer is here in case there's any questions specifically that come up about the climate action plan. So Mayor, I'd like to turn this over to Laurie. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Herbig and members of the City Council. So as Debbie mentioned, House Bill 1099 included several components. It was a long bill. The most significant component was that the city was to prepare a climate change and resiliency element as part of the comprehensive plan. So in Kenmore, the climate change element was put on the docket in January of 2022, and we anticipate that the work on that will start later this year. It's the climate change element was also an implementation measure of the climate action plan. The city applied for, and we've had early indications that we will receive about $80,000 in funding to help develop this element from the Washington State Department of Commerce. The other items included in the bill, there were several of them, but I'll just touch on some of them. They were also described in the agenda bill. One was to address multimodal transportation, which is something that Kenmore has always done in its transportation element. And so there is an update of that element currently underway. That is already in progress and will be going to the Planning Commission actually in just a few weeks. And so that multimodal focus will continue based on this historic pattern of looking at multimodal transportation, and also because it's part of, again, the climate action plan. The bill also addresses missing middle housing. That was a last minute addition. And the idea was that the bill would support up to 4 plexes. Those are 4 units within a quarter mile of transit as a climate measure. And they also reference a minimum density of 33 dwelling units per acre. That's a bit higher than the Planning Commission's recommendation, which is for duplexes and triplexes up to 3 units within a quarter mile of our 2 main transit corridors. And Council will be discussing this approach on the 25th. So more to come there. The last thing I wanted to mention was resiliency. It is, again, titled a climate change and resiliency element. The resiliency part is to address the impacts of climate change, and we may be able to use our 2020 hazard mitigation plan to partially address those requirements. Again, in 2020, as part of the King County effort, we drafted this hazard mitigation plan that talks about issues that we foresee and actions we might take to address those. The last thing I might mention is some standards about wildfire and the urban wildland interface and the potential for wildland fire. Again, in King County, that's not something that is really at the top of the list. There are a few comments about it, but Kenmore is really not in a position, except perhaps at St. Edward State Park, to be facing that kind of a hazard. So again, the hazard mitigation plan doesn't specifically tackle that, and the King County Emergency Management does not view that as a particular hazard for the city. So with that, as Debbie mentioned, the team is here, and we are happy to take questions or hear your comments. Thank you.
Questions, comments? I'm not seeing any hands being raised right now, which I'll take as I think we must be happy with the direction that you're going in generally. Well, that was quick. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming tonight, for presenting. Appreciate the update, appreciate the work you're putting into the comp plan and folding in these pieces. Next on the agenda, Pilot Youth Swim Program in partnership with the North Shore YMCA, presented by Community Development Director Debbie Bent and Recreation Coordinator Rita Moreno.
Thank you, Council. And so we're bringing forward to you this evening a proposal for a fall pilot swim program in partnership with the North Shore YMCA. And the proposal would be for the city to reimburse the YMCA for the cost of providing an 8-week program or a 4-week program, 1 lesson per week at no cost to Kenmore youth. The YMCA would take care of registration, income verification, and provide the staffing and instruction necessary for the swim lessons at the North Shore YMCA facility in Bothell. In February, the council commented about the city exploring partnerships and/or scholarships with the YMCA. In your agenda, Bill, you'll see that we've given some examples of how cost would be broken down and the number of youth served. The cost for swim lessons is $32 per lesson, or $128 for a 4-week session, or $256 for an 8-week session. And there is discounts available based on income. So we provided a couple of examples for how to serve a variety of income for approximately 50 youth for a 4-week program, or 50 youth for an 8-week program. There is currently money set aside for recreation programming, about $4,600. So for a 4-week program, we'd need approximately an additional, what is that? $375, rounding up to $10,000 for an 8-week program. So that would require an additional $5,375. You might recall that earlier in the year, we asked for authorization for a spring program, which was for a partnership with the McDonald Swim School at the Aqua Club. We were not able to make that partnership work for a fall swim program. And also we felt that an indoor fall swim program might be better served. So council, again, this is a pilot swim program. So this is just an idea if council wishes to move forward with this. And then staff, if council does move forward, staff would report back after the conclusion of this program. And council would also have the opportunity during the next budget cycle to determine if this is a program that council wishes to pursue in additional years. So if there are any comments or questions, Rita and I are available to answer them.
Councilmember Srebnick.
Thank you for putting this together, and I know that it wasn't the most straightforward thing. So a couple little questions. Is the 8-week program, is that 50 kids plus 50 kids, or is that 50 kids for 8 weeks? So the same kid, okay, so it's the same kids, just a longer
program.
duration. Okay. And the other question is around transportation. So I guess, so these would be taking beginners, right? So are they all in the same class and they transport them, or, I mean, what are the logistics, I guess, involved here?
I'm going to let Rita respond to that one.
Yeah, I think what's really neat about doing it this way is that families are able to sign up for a class that fits their family needs. So if they need a Saturday class, they're able to sign up for that. If they need a Monday class, they're able to do that. So the logistical part is, making it available for them to pick any class that works better for them, versus when we were trying to do it at the Aqua Club, it was just Saturdays, that's it. So I think this kind of opens it up a little bit more.
But we haven't figured out a way to provide transportation then. Okay.
No.
Councilmember Kugler.
Thank you so much for doing this research. I have a couple of logistical questions also, just for clarification purposes. Do we pay per youth or participant, or a flat rate for the program as a whole? Like, I think I'm unclear as to whether we're reimbursing for each actual participant, or whether we're paying a flat rate to the YMCA for offering a total program, either 4 or 8 weeks. So that's my first question.
It would be per participant.
Okay. And then also, I think similar to maybe what Councilmember Rinck was asking about, I'm wondering about some of like the peripherals that one might need if they're to participate, especially if they have financial need, like transportation, but also maybe a swimming suit, goggles, things like that. Could we incorporate that, or incorporate funding for that?
You certainly could. That was, we were just putting together sort of a basic partnership program. And this is how we would anticipate the cost. It certainly, council could allocate more funds. We would then have to figure out how to administer those additional funds to those individuals.
Okay. And then could we have, I don't know, maybe this is also for the rest of the council, but have we talked about basing it just on financial need, or paying for this for everyone? And I'm wondering if we cover this program for everyone, have we ever done that before with any of our other recreational programs?
So I think the way the example in the agenda bill, it was sort of based on a discounted rates based on income, trying to serve more folks with that needed discounted income. So on those two examples, to the income tier who are earning more than $80,000 a year, there was less, and the higher the income, we tried to kind of make sure that there was equal amounts set there. And that would be something that we would have to talk to the Y about in terms of what kind of income levels we want to serve. So that is something we could certainly add into the contract with the YMCA if we want to serve more people at the lower levels.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember File.
Thank you. And just looking at the academic calendar for North Shore School District, I noticed that an 8-week program would roll into the start of their school year. So I think maybe for this year, I would recommend that we go with the 4-week program, because otherwise we'd be 2 weeks into the academic year if we were even to start this program next week. I really love the idea that Councilmember Kugler came up with, providing some necessities that normally are required for joining a swim lesson. And I really like to see us address the socioeconomic threshold issues. I can definitely see, if a person qualifies for free induced lunch program as a point of referenceability. The 80,000 family threshold a year seems like a lot for people who otherwise would more likely be able to afford to send their kids to a lesson. So I'm looking at more of a reduced family need and supporting more students across that way. I'd rather see us send 100 students for 4 weeks of lessons and provide some necessities and just plan better for next year. I can't wrap up without thanking you all wholeheartedly for pulling through with this lovely outcome. This is going to be a great opportunity for our community and good work and well done.
Deputy Mayor.
Excuse me. I think most of the questions that I have already been answered, but I have two. Was there one of the things that in relating a little bit to Councilmember Files' comment about $80,000, I think that's a fair threshold to have no program discount. But what it does relate was who, I'm trying to find the right way to describe his incomes today, and with inflation and everything, it's really what is low income? Like, when does that begin? What does it take for a family to get by and have the resources to do something like swimming lessons? That's just something I think about. So I'd say that people 65,000 and under definitely probably can use support, especially if they're supporting families. But what I was just keep thinking with my math was, I would love to see higher threshold discounts, especially at the lower end from 50,000 and below, rather than more discounts higher. And so that was there consideration to tiering it with, maybe closer to free or, higher percentage discounts for people at lower income levels. And then my second question, which relates, let me just get back to it. Let's just start with that, and I have a follow-up. Thank you.
Okay. So the income tiers and the fund discounts, those are directly from the Y. Okay. So this is how they work the incomes and the discounts.
Okay.
So all I did in that program was to just give a spread of how you could potentially serve 50 youth. And we could do that any which way you want to do. This was just showing an example of how discounts work and potentially how many youth you could serve. So if council direction is 50 youth and it's only for families earning less than 12,000, or however you want to divide it up, we can divide it up any which way you like. So these were just two examples provided, but the actual discounts and the income tiers are the WISE program. So I would not suggest that you change those if we're partnering with the Y, because that would then add a complicating factor to the administration.
And then my other question was how, related to who we are targeting and how we're reaching out. What are we doing? We're not there yet. Obviously, we're just conceptually talking about this, but do we have a picture of how we're going to reach out to let our community know about these discounts that we're offering?
I'm going to let Rita jump in here too as well. But I mean, we in the past when we've done this, we did a program with Mary's Place where we reached out to Mary's Place to try and figure out kids at Mary's Place who might be able to participate in this. We would obviously do some social media outreach on the website, and the Y also has their own social media outreach. So Rita, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add into that.
Yeah, we also work with the North Shore Schools Foundation, and they have liaisons in the schools, so Arrowhead Elementary, Kenmore Elementary. So they also work with the families there to get the word out. So like Hope Link, and like Debbie said, we work with Mary's Place too.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to know. I mean, and I just don't, I'm having a hard time just with our area having an idea of how to get 50 from a certain target group. I guess for me, what I lean a little bit towards, I shared that earlier, is having higher discounts for a group of people who are in more need. And I don't know what that looks like, but say Mary's Place. I could imagine if I was at Mary's Place, it would be very hard for me to come up with $70 per se for my child to go to swim lessons. So that's kind of the thing that was crossing through my mind. I'm really excited about where we're going. And I think, you know, even having this baseline to begin with is good. I'm open to the 4 or 8 week programs. I think it's good work, but I personally would like to see higher discounts for people at lower income levels.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes, are these going to be group lessons or individual lessons? I'm just wondering if you got a kid that can dog paddle and another child that sinks straight to the bottom. It seems to me like you've got to spend a lot of time categorizing them.
Yeah, so, oh, sorry, Debbie.
Go ahead. I mean, I think that's what Rita said before, is it's not, they can sign up for whatever class suits them. So if you have a kid who has never taken a swim lesson, would be in one class, and you have a kid who's had some experience, would be signed up for a different class.
Okay, so these are group lessons then.
They're group lessons, they're not individual.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shrepnick.
Yeah, I think I didn't fully appreciate the amount that the families were going to need to pay. I think I'm subtly, I'm realizing that now, and I completely support Councilmember O'Kane, Deputy Mayor O'Kane. And actually, I'm just wondering whether we can just set an income max and say it's free below that. I mean, you know, we're not talking about that many kids. So I just, you know, kind of make it simple. And I'm not sure what the above 80, I mean, if it's above 80, it could be, I don't know, 200,000. I mean, I don't know. I don't really understand what that means. So I wouldn't go there. So that's one. And then I'm wondering if we can leverage, for a question, I'm wondering if we can just leverage our ARPA direct assistance work. I mean, we identified a lot of households. Some of those probably had kids, I would guess. It was working with North Shore School District. So I'm wondering if we can do that. And that might also inform the income level that we might want to target. Because I know I think we started at if I'm remembering correctly. No, I'm not remembering correctly. I can't remember what income level we targeted for that exactly. So that would be a question. 50% of
area median income.
Area median income. So I mean, that, you know, might be something to look at. And then the last just comment, there actually already is a swim teacher that's targeting Mary's Place. And I think I gave you her name, Emily. So I wouldn't want to kind of supplant what's probably already happening for no money at all.
Councilmember File.
Thank you. I absolutely support both, our deputy mayor and the recommendation put forth by Councilmember Shrepnick. And it would really just be a nice thing to do if we can hit that 50% and below and cover that as a total investment in our children in our community who could really benefit from learning how to swim. And looking at, I just pulled up the USDA Food and Nutrition Services grid sheet, and I'm seeing that kind of the threshold for federal poverty lines is about 46,630, and at reduced price meals, up to 86,000. So if we are able to hit that 50% mean below and cover 100%, I'd be thrilled. If we are looking at the difference for that 50% to the 80K that we're talking about as a partial coverage, that I would also support.
Deputy Mayor?
Like Karina, I wanted to, or council member, excuse me, I'm a little tired this evening. I wanted to thank Councilmember Rinck for the idea of using our ARPA work for outreach. I thought that was a great idea, and for the concept of fully funding swimming, along with Councilmember Files' support for those ideas. The real goal is what I would really want is to be able to use all of these funds that we set aside and get as many children swimming as possible. So if we have to do a check and adjust next year when we do this, we can look at that, but that's really the goal. And like when we did ARPA, we had to check and adjust. Was our reach big enough to get enough kids? In this sense, is our reach going to be big enough to get more kids swimming from Kenmore than what we have today? Because we want to get 50 more kids swimming than what we have today. And I would love to see that, whether it's 1 or 2 months. So thank you.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes, I'm not clear on whether or not we're going to provide rides. My understanding is we're not providing rides. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
So are we in danger of losing a number of lower income participants because they don't have a way there? And if so, has any thought been given to an Uber or a Lyft? They take kids to and from swimming all the time, and they're very reasonable to work with as a city.
So when I met with the Y, we did actually discuss the usage of their minibuses. They have I think maybe 4 or 5 on site. So that was just something, that we kind of talked about, and they know that we're presenting this and are open to more discussion. So I think using their transportation might be an option.
Great, thank you. I don't drive for them anymore, just to be clear.
Councilmember Kugler?
I don't have a question. More of a statement of support and just clarification. So I think this is tremendously important for our community. I mean, even the statistics that you include from the USA Swimming Foundation, like 79% of children in households with incomes less than 50,000 have little to no swimming ability, is a lot. I actually grew up swimming competitively since I was 7 years old, all the way through high school, going to practice like twice a day. So I know this firsthand, like how important it is to know how to swim for personal safety reasons, but also because it really opens up a lot of opportunities. Lifeguarding during the summer is a really great paying job. It's also, a lot less physical than I'd say a lot of other summer jobs you can get as a teen as well. So there are a lot of opportunities. I guess I also want to just voice support of being able to support more of the costs for those who are falling in the lower socioeconomic range. In an ideal world, I wish this were a partnership with North Shore School District, because I feel like there are other barriers for participation, like time, not just for the kids, but also for the parents, transportation getting there. And frequency, which we've talked about in the past. It takes a long time to build up, proficiency. But I think it's a good start. I think if we can help at least, 50 of our youth here participate and get some exposure to some lessons, I think that's a really good starting point. So thank you.
I'd like to just add, if it's okay, that when I was at the Y, I used to work there, and there is fourth graders that come in. There was a program that would bring fourth grade kids from North Shore School District. And so that's something that when I met with the YMCA, that's something that we talked about as well, was partnering with North Shore School District to continue that program, to talk about what funding for that program looks like. So with school being out and the superintendent just leaving, that was, a conversation that the director at the Y was like, let's pick this up in the fall. So it's definitely, an opportunity for us to work with them.
Councilmember File.
If the busing situation should fall through, I would absolutely support Councilmember Baker's recommendation of an Uber or a Lyft ride. We're close enough, it's affordable enough that I believe we could cover that with our, added ARPA dollars. I can say, as a single mother with 2 kids at one time, when facing a great hardship, transportation was difficult in getting around. And navigating our community via bus with small kids is challenging. So if we can reduce the barrier to participation by providing transportation, reliable transportation, we would have probably a greater participation for involvement, and something I'd really like to us address if we can. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing no further questions, the chair would entertain a motion giving authorization to the city manager to enter into a contract with the North Shore YMCA. Are these separate motions, Ms. Bent?
I think what we're looking for is, first of all, does council want to support a 4 or an 8-week program, because the costs are different? And what these costs did not assume was the cost of transportation. So if you approve the current budget, that does not include transportation. So I think council needs to decide if it wants to fund 4 or 8 weeks. And if so, then we would suggest $5,000 for a 4-week or $10,000 for an 8-week. And if you wanted to include transportation, I don't have an idea of how much that would cost, either with the Y for minibuses or how much we would need for Ubers or Lyfts.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Baker.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion.
No motion's been made yet, so.
Oh, okay, never mind. I've got an amendment, though.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I was wondering if we as a council might be able to make, I'm not making a motion right now, but make a motion towards, for example, 8 weeks, and assess, as we go through it. We have, Rita mentioned working with North Shore Schools, exploring what options there are, and if there's a need for additional funding for transportation, for us to explore that then, or assess it for a future iteration of this program. To get this started, it's just a thought, because we don't have an assessment of even what the real need for transportation is, what our partners might be able to provide. I think that's kind of a broad thing, but I'd like to get this lifted off the ground today. That's just my sense. So transportation, I think, is important. I would love to be able to get those needs met for our community, and I think that's something that we can do. It's not something that's scoped out here, but it may be less expensive. I mean, it may not be a big impact. So I'd like to move forward with at least getting the program approved for I'd like 8 months. 8 weeks personally.
Okay, Councilmember Baker, did you have?
Yeah,
something?
I had a question. We talked about 4 weeks and we talked about 8 weeks. We've talked about the school year. Is this something that would go into the fall semester, or when school started, would this sort of be curtailed? Because if it is, then I'd like to make a motion to approve the 4 weeks. use the ARPA money this year.
So, Rita, correct me if I'm wrong here, is that this is not for a specific calendared 4 week. People can sign up and start this program anytime. So they could start, if this is approved, they could start in August, they could start in September, they could start later. So we would just kind of say, you know, we could say we have this contract with the Y to serve 50 kids for a year, and then kids can sign up and start whenever it's convenient to them. It's not for a specific time period.
Okay, then never mind.
Okay.
Councilmember Shrubnik?
But we do have a motion though, do we?
We don't have a motion. She was
But I-
explicit about not making a motion. She was trying to get a sense of the council.
Okay. Well, since this is a pilot, I would like to actually make a motion. We'll try it. So my motion, which you can vote up or down or discuss, would be to offer 4 weeks as a pilot for families at or below 50% AMI, which was our ARPA threshold, and to have that be free, and to offer flexible transportation, which would be Uber, unless there is a way that the little mini buses could work. I'm guessing it wouldn't be feasible because you're talking about one-offs as opposed to groups. So that's why I'm making the motion as I am, and I'm assuming that not every single one of those 50 will need transportation. So I am willing to go out on a limb and say 4 weeks with transportation offered for 50% AMI and free.
Second,
And
Councilmember
I'm
File.
willing to second that.
Got a third and a fourth. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? All right, well, I will say, since I'm the only person who hasn't spoken so far, that I agree with Councilmember Shrubnik's motion. I support it. I think we need to, you know, go through a pilot, work out the kinks, figure out where the needs are, and then come back and address them in a larger scale. So I appreciate the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Councilmember File.
Aye.
Councilmember Kugler.
Yes.
Councilmember Shrubnik.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane.
Yes.
Mayor Herbig.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is Resolution 22-388, amending council rules and procedures presented by City Attorney Don Rayton. For discussion and or approval, Ms. Rayton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening and good evening, council. It's getting a little late, so I will give a brief summary of the resolution before you, which is amending the existing City of Kenmore Council Rules of Procedures. As noted in the agenda, state law requires that you pass rules for the orderly conduct of your meetings. And the council had a pretty massive update to its older rules in February of 2021. We have before you a fairly discrete set of amendments to your rules of procedures. And that was really initiated by the legislature, which adopted in 2022 changes to the Open Public Meetings Act. So a portion of the proposed changes to your rules are to be consistent with the legislative changes. And I've identified in the agenda really the specific changes. For example, Section 3 is, while it's not a update to the OPMA and meetings, it is, there are proposed changes for the biennial election of the mayor and deputy mayor. That was on my to-do list for some time after our January election. And really, I put it off until there were additional rule changes for efficiency's sake. And the OPMA changes gave me that opportunity. Essentially, what the Section 3 does is simply identify those procedures that the council actually already used in January 2022, just for everybody's information and transparency. The only thing that was changed was that instead of the mayor running the mayor election, we actually changed that to the city clerk running the first election for the new mayor. And then Section 6 and Section 8 really are the kind of guts of updating your rules to be consistent with the legislative changes to the OPMA. I direct your attention to Section 6.b frequency. The council had when we noted that this was needing to be changed because your rules limit a council person's ability to attend virtually to only 3 times annually. And there was some discussion and direction to come back with a change. As a placeholder, 10 times in a calendar year was inserted simply, again, as a placeholder. Of course, the frequency of remote access for council members is completely in the council's discretion. And then Section 8, again, provides just simple updates because of the legislative OPMA changes. That is a kind of a brief summary of those proposed changes. I would be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions? Councilmember File.
So my first question is really more of a comment. I'm thinking and looking at Section 6B in frequency. I think the 10 times placeholder is fine, given that we're hybrid and, you know, that's the modern kind of way and age of we're living in. However, I'm thinking that it might be nice to add an exception for council members attending away meetings. There are times, you know, when we have, you know, Councilmember Baker attends a lot of away meetings for, you know, the National League of Cities or Association of Washington Cities for training and representation. I think that would be a fair exemption to consider.
Any other questions? Councilmember Shrevenick.
Yeah, I love these changes. Actually had the opposite feeling about 10, which was a little high. I mean, that's like 1 a month, given that we're off in August and most of December. That seemed high, but if we consider that to be remote for any reason, which could be meetings or sick or vacation where you're wanting to dial in, but you're away. I mean, I would be good with that, I guess. It does seem like a fair amount to me. But my question was, is this a time to make other amendments to the rules? I mean, for example, I think we had tossed around putting something in there about how we do our regional committee process, or, you know, role of council members not leading love notes, or, you know, I'm just not sure, is that tonight or is that a different time?
So you always have the ability to have motions because the issue is clearly in front of you. However, it's very difficult to wordsmithy on the fly. So there's a couple options. You could attempt to do that. It takes a lot of time. But if you want to kind of take two types of approach, you could look at what we have currently and determine if that's sufficient, or you can just direct staff to come back with the changes noted on the agenda tonight, but with additional changes. So it's really how the council wants to move forward on their rules.
The only thing that I had that was a kind of comment on the edits was that I think it said 24 hours in advance if remote, and sometimes, like, if you're sick, you might not know 24 hours in advance. You know, if you like test positive.
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
of course,
on the procedure for that, it says you should advise. So you're not required anticipating those very kind of emergency circumstances.
Deputy Mayor?
I want to thank you for preparing these changes. I like where they're at. I would rather not work on other changes at this time. Personally, I think this is good progress, and I think we need a little bit more time and thought and care as we add other items to our rules.
Yeah, for my my only suggestion change could be, and again, I thought 10 sounded a little bit high, but I can kind of see where that is as a starting point. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not sure where this would fit, but I actually think that there should be, since we're going to be opening up things to be a little bit more hybrid, I think we should state in the rules somewhere who chairs a meeting. Say if the mayor is remote and the deputy mayor is in person, I think the only way that it's going to truly work is if the chair is actually physically present on the dais during these hybrid meetings. And I think we should probably spell that out someplace, that in the event that the mayor is remote, then the deputy mayor, if they're present, will chair the meeting. If the deputy mayor isn't present, then the body will choose somebody to run the meeting or something along those lines. Because there's no way to, at least I don't think there's any really good way to run the meeting from, as a remote participant.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Of course.
I know that there's rules like the mayor's rules, et cetera, but I think they're throughout. It would be difficult at this point to find all the times where the mayor may be the chair or not the chair. If you'd like me to bring back suggested language, I'm happy to do that. If we add it tonight, I'm afraid that it wouldn't be, I like to be very complete, and I don't know the full rules off the top of my head tonight for those type of sharing rules.
No, that's totally fine. I'm fine with us moving forward with what we have in front of us, and then coming back later with issues like the ones that Councilmember Shrevenick raised and the ones that I raised, just as housekeeping things. Deputy Mayor?
Just a quick question on our mayor's suggestion, on the mayor's suggestion. Would it be possible if the mayor were remote to hand over the chair responsibility during the meeting without it being in the rules?
So my understanding from Robert's rules, even if they're not enunciated in your rules, because of course you run by way of Robert's rules, is that the chair always runs the meeting regardless of remote or not. So much like today, when the mayor handed it off, the presentation to the deputy mayor, I think that could still occur even if the mayor was remote. I think it's a policy decision whether or not the council wants the chair in person or not.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can handle things in the short term, but I still think in the long term, it'd be nice to have it spelled out one way or the other, so there's not confusion. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember File?
I was going to make the recommendation, if not to, if we're only going to be looking at what we have today with the minor little edits, but like a suggestion for something to come back to consider would be for new council members coming along to take their municipal leadership certification training within the first year. Our state requires you only take 5 credits worth of continuing education at the very beginning of your council start. The certificate of municipal leadership is certainly enough to help keep most council members out of trouble, and I highly recommend it. In fact, most half our council already has one, but I'm saying from maybe this point forward that we might add that to our rules for incoming council members.
Deputy Mayor.
My only question is how we would track that and enforce that, what the repercussion would be. It seems,
Councilmember File.
Yeah, Association of Washington Cities tracks continuing education for council members online. It's easily pulled up by any person in the community. And you can also add added training that's outside of AWC to it by emailing it forward. So simple enough to track and follow, simple enough to print off a sheet, not difficult to maintain. And actually that basic certificate of municipal leadership can be obtained for free with online learning. And most of the trainings are like maybe an hour, hour and a half. I know I finished mine in the first few months. Councilmember Kugler finished hers in the first 6 months. Deputy Mayor Herberg has one. A year is ample time to be able to accomplish this, and something you definitely can do from home. So it's not a financial hardship either. It would be something you can filter in over the course of a year. But it's definitely a sign of excellence for a council.
Speaking for myself, I actually don't think that adding extra requirements to council members makes a lot of sense. I mean, if people want to take classes, they're welcome to. I don't have a certificate from AWC. I've taken NLCU classes, but I've never actually chased down a certificate because I've taken the classes out of personal interest, not out of seeking a certificate of recognition. And I don't think that requiring that of folks who are elected, especially when folks are busy and this is a very part-time thing and people have a lot of other priorities, is something I would want to push on new council members. I would, of course, encourage folks to go to AWC and take classes and encourage folks to do things online, but I don't think adding a requirement is something I would support personally. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, that actually you said a few of the things that I wanted to say. And I think the real question I have is about enforcement. What if someone doesn't on top of that, in addition to being elected and not having, it just to me seems that enforcement, there's nothing we can do if a council member didn't meet that deadline as an elected official. It's a good thing to guide and encourage our council to participate in that actual follow through, to track it. I'm not understanding how we could do that.
Any further questions? Councilmember Kugler.
Well, just because we're talking about that topic, like maybe that doesn't fit in our rules, but I do think that could be part of our onboarding. Maybe that when our staff cover like the AWC membership, maybe pointing out like there is professional development available. There are these courses. I will say, having gone through it, it definitely gives you a good baseline understanding and vocabulary that is really helpful as a new council member.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, the chair would then entertain a motion to pass resolution 22-388, amending resolution 21-360 to adopt revised City of Kenmore Council rules and procedures.
So moved.
Second.
I heard Councilmember Kugler move, and I heard the deputy mayor second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, would the clerk please take the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Shrubnik?
Yes.
Mayor Herbig?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Kugler?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane?
Yes.
Councilmember File?
Yes.
The motion passes and the resolution is approved.
Thank you very much. Next on the
you,
agenda is staff report, Public Works Facility Status Update presented by Operations Manager Jennifer Gordon and Environmental Services Manager Richard Sawyer.
Your Honor, if I could just give a quick intro and then turn it over to them.
Of course.
Yeah, we're really super excited about the opportunity to build a public works facility. It's long overdue, and it's going to really help us serve the residents and businesses of our city. So super excited about it. And as you know, we recently purchased the parcels on 202nd Avenue right next door to the middle school. And this is going to give us more usable area, and it's going to present us with at least two important opportunities that we did not have with other properties that we were looking at. First of all, it's going to give us the space to build a facility that will last for and grow with multiple generations. So we're excited for that. And then also, just as importantly, if not more so, these properties are going to allow us to build out a facility that can help us fight climate change and maybe even be a regenerative facility and be stewards of the natural environment. So there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to that on this property. So I think we have a once in a lifetime chance here to build a first of its kind next generation public works facility that can not only fight the climate change, but also possibly be regenerative, like I said. So there's lots of features that you see in the memo that we're looking at that will help us do that. But at this time, I'd like to turn the time over to Jennifer Gordon, our Public Works Operations Manager, and Richard Sawyer, our Environmental Services Manager, to give you more details.
Thanks, Rob. I just wanted, this is really a brief memo and just wanted to let you know kind of where we're at in the project. At this point in time, we are, we've been working the last several months with the comp plan amendment to change the rezoning from R6 to the public semi-public. And while that's going on, that process, we're concurrently working on several other tasks as part of the planning for the project. And the tasks that we're working on right now are really just refining our programs, really diving deep into what our operations are going to look like, what they look like right now, what they're going to look like in, the next couple of years, and what they're going to look like 10, 20 plus years. So I guess we just really want to be thoughtful about what operations are going to be happening there in the long-term future. We're also evaluating the community needs for the facility. So I think we've mentioned a couple times that we're looking at the possibility of having space that the public could potentially use, or maybe the facility could serve as an educational site for kids at the middle school or even people outside of Kenmore. We're going to be continuing to evaluate the code and permit requirements for the site and continue on with the preliminary site assessments, as well as work on the demolition of the existing buildings on the properties. I'm going to turn the next couple bullets over to Richard.
Yeah. So as council recalls, and the recently adopted climate action plan, one of the very first goals and actions that we identified was to require that new buildings that the city constructs be energy efficient and carbon neutral. So we're going to continue working with our architect, and we've already started meeting with other experts in the field to discuss what does that mean to be a carbon neutral building. We've had some pretty exciting meetings and lots of ideas how to do that. And we'll be moving forward with that direction from the climate action plan to develop this site with sustainable and carbon neutral ideas in mind. And then kind of last on the list was to develop a preliminary budget and schedule estimates for the site. And then once we have that ready, come back to council this fall and get your direction on kind of where to proceed from here.
I think that's all we have. If there's any questions we can answer.
Questions? I'm not. Councilmember Rinck.
No, this is more of a statement. I have to say, of course, I'm super excited that we moved Public Works inside and that we, internal, and that we now are going to have a place. But I've said this before that, the cost is way more than we originally thought. We bought a much bigger set of parcels. We were originally thinking that we could divide those and do something to recover some of the money for that. We're not going to be doing that. I'm just getting increasingly uncomfortable with the escalating costs, even though you haven't put the costs out there yet. The tone of these memos suggests that it's going to be even more. And so on that note, that's where I'm at with that. And then the last thing is on the space and amenities for environmental education. We do have an environmental education center, and it's at St. Ed's. And I wouldn't want to do anything that would potentially draw people away or undermine. So maybe there's a way to partner without having additional footprint, which I wouldn't want to have on the public works site for that. I think we could do better with just using it for more trees or figuring out if there is a way to subdivide. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Your Honor, can I respond to that?
Of course.
Yeah, so if you look at the last bullet on the memo, it talks about site development options. So we're not backing you into a corner here on building the most expensive site possible. We'll have options that we'll have at least one other option that will be less expensive that we're going to show you in the fall. So if you want to go with a less expensive option, you still have that choice. You still have that option. And then the thought with the youth is that, we'll be right next door to the elementary school, and we'll actually have features that are functioning on site that we can show people. Like the Environmental Learning Center won't have all the cool stuff that this does. It'll be an on-site place to see a working carbon neutral building.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. And I think it would be wonderful if we can have a facility that is carbon neutral and a model for the region that I think it'd be wonderful if we could be a leader. And I do think the location near Kenmore Middle School and Lockwood Elementary and even Kenmore Elementary, they're all relatively close for kids to come see and tour is one thing. It's also other cities. I think about like the Brightwater facility that I've gone on tours for, where we're seeing the good work that they're doing, and then other people can model after that. So, and I like the idea of something for as long, something that's going to be serving our community as long as possible in the most healthy way. So hopefully we can get a win on budget and design, and maybe we have a long-term savings in whatever it is that we're capturing rather than having to spend for energy and those sorts of things. So anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing where it comes, and I recognize Councilmember Shrevenick's concerns about costs. I do like the idea of making sure that what we can do is for the environment is in the forefront as we're making this design.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember File.
Thank you. Just a comment here. I'm really excited about this project. It's a great opportunity for Kenmore in leadership, as we are a medium-sized city and only growing. This facility in its fine design would carry us further into the future than something smaller that we'd outgrow in 10, 20 years. So I am supportive of a carbon neutral design and project. I like that there's an educational room setting, so we certainly could use maybe cross use of additional conference room space. So I think if we can, multi-use the building for those sort of circumstances as well would be great. And I'm more in favor of the larger project versus the smaller. The location is excellent. It has a lot of great opportunities for Kenmore, also in pairing with our local school district. I'm sure that we can have some good screening design that could make that whole building disappear from the surrounding community if we needed to. So we want to be good neighbors, and I'm sure we can do that. And I thank you for your hard work and dedication on this.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah, I do want to see what everything is going to cost as we move forward, because as much as I would love to see us make an example of the public works shop, we are spending much more than we were originally talking about a few years ago on this. And I do want to really make sure we're able to dig into that a bit, making sure that we are being good stewards. I also do want to recognize that some of the investments that we're talking about could be long-term money savers when it comes to electricity and other things. So I hope that we'll be looking at those and factoring those in with the overall, cost of ownership over time calculations later on. Because I think there probably is an argument for some of those investments that staff is proposing that I would love to see happen. So I really appreciate the work that's going into this. I'm excited that we're actually going to finally have a public works yard that will do what we needed to do so that Jennifer and her crew can continue to do the excellent work they're doing throughout the city. Yeah, looking forward to thank you for the work.
Thank you. We are really excited also. So excited to come back to you in the fall to talk more about it.
Sounds good. City manager?
Yeah, just a couple more things.
Of course.
Yeah, so State of the City is a week from tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. here at Kenmore City Hall. You do need to register in advance. So if you haven't done that, please make sure you do. And Mayor Herberg and I will be tag teaming it, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great way to tell our story. And the other item is Log Boom Park is just really making me smile. It is fulfilling the vision of our residents when they voted yes on that bond measure back in 2016. And there's just so many wonderful pictures of people setting up on that beach and kids doing sandcastles. And I love walking by like in the evening and I see all these remnants of play, little sandcastle remnants and things like that. It's just really bringing a lot of joy and making me smile. And so if I ever get grumpy, all I have to do is think about what's going on at Log Boom. So that's all I have.
All right. Next up is Councilmember reports and comments. We have an item here, Coffee with Council, considering new format. Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, you all had directed us to bring that back. Right now, your coffees with council are 100% remote. And so you wanted to come back in July to talk about whether to have one or both of them start being in person.
All right. Do we want to, I'll open up to discussion. Do folks want to discuss coming back in
Mr.
person?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Baker.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have them go back to being in person, Diva. I think it's been a long time coming. I miss seeing the people.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'd love to see them in person as well.
Councilmember File?
I'm going to be a little cautious and say it'd be nice to have a hybrid option. It's not that all difficult to set up a laptop at the end of the table and have people join in that way as well. We have a lot of seniors in our community who are mostly the largest participants of our Coffee with Council meetings. And given the state of the COVID uprise and the pandemic again, and a good example of one of our fellow colleagues is homesick today. I think we have to be mindful of providing a safe, welcoming space. And for some people, that's going to be online. And I love the idea of getting back in person. I really love the cafe experience myself, but I think it's nice to present some options.
Councilmember Kugler.
I actually haven't attended a coffee with council in person before, so I'm not sure what attendance was like prior to COVID or what it would be like before, after, but I do know online has provided a lot of accessibility. It seems like attendance, from what I've heard from others, has increased while it's online. So I think I would like some sort of hybrid version. It's not really ideal. I feel like either you need online or in person and to rotate, but then that gets really messy when you rotate the schedule. So hybrid is probably the best in between. That's where I'm landing.
Councilmember Shubnik.
Do we have a sense of if there's a different demographic now? I haven't done the Thursday, the afternoon one since we've gone to that. I know the early morning tends to be maybe older. So maybe that one could be virtual. I don't know.
I believe the Thursday ones have been canceled due to lack of participation. I could be wrong, but I believe at least one or two of those have been canceled. These folks have busy lives. Yeah, I generally would love to get back to in person. I am a little concerned right now with the BA.5 variant kind of tearing through folks and frankly leading to a lot of reinfections for folks who've already had COVID more than once. It's a little concerning to me. I am a little concerned about how hybrid would work in the coffee shop, to be honest. It's a little, I don't know, it could be a little bit of a noisy environment for having a laptop sitting there, depending on what else is happening in the hangar. Not opposed to it. I just don't know how practical it could be. Councilmember Kugler?
If the Thursday one didn't have good attendance and we canceled it, then maybe there is good reason to have one online and one in person, perhaps on Saturdays, and then we rotate. Well, or we say like the first Saturday of each month is in person. The third Saturday of each month is online. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that could work.
Well, just one slight correction. They're only on one Thursday a month and one Saturday a month right now.
True. But yeah, if we had one of those, and I think the Saturday makes the most sense probably for online. I don't know. I'm open to anything really, but
That would put it every week.
Every week?
Just about 4 Saturdays a month if we had on every Saturday.
And we've been having problems just staffing our regular 2 a month the last couple of months. Councilmember File?
There's also the issue of the starting of the meeting. Right now, I think it's established with a specific account, and there's no reason why it can't just be applied with a city account and with a automatic start with applied host. Since we all are pretty capable with Zoom these days, it certainly would free up, additional council members' time who might want to take the weekend off, or those who have to wait for a meeting to start.
Yeah, we could set up those meetings so that they don't require a host to be in attendance to start it. That's easy enough to do in the settings. Does anybody have a proposal? Because I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other around this.
I've just got a question. You mentioned tying up staff time. What staff time are we tying up with Coffee with Council?
No, I believe she was talking about the fact that right now one person's account is responsible for all of the Zoom.
No. Or statement before that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Deputy Mayor?
Okay.
I think I'm okay with the way things are for now, and maybe we touch base on this again. I think the statements about people's concerns about COVID attendance, as much as I would personally like to meet in a cafe, I think hybrid sounds hard to going to be a little more challenging to manage. And online seems to be what's working for now. So I'm comfortable with leaving it as is. It's council. Yeah, it's up to us.
What we used to do that I actually think helped get different people involved with Coffee with Council was we actually, at least when I started on council, we actually just passed down a sign-up sheet with a list of dates. And we all signed on. We could all see what people were signing up for instead of using the calendar invites. And I think frankly, there was a little element of peer pressure on that with folks signing up, which I think was good because it got more people taking a couple meetings here or there instead of just one or two folks kind of doing all of them and some people not doing any, which is what I've seen a lot the last couple of years. And I'll own some of that. But I think, you know, if we could all split those up, so we have a couple different people at each meeting, and I think signing up on something physical is actually kind of a helpful thing because then we can actually think through and go, okay, I can take these 2 dates, but I'm not going to take these ones here. And we can all make sure they're covered at the end of a meeting, you know, for the next couple of months. I think that might get us some better results as far as kind of turnout goes too. Because it's really easy to look at your calendar and go, I'm not going to do that when you're looking at your phone. It's a little bit harder to do it when you're at a meeting and somebody's passing you a sign-up sheet that other people have already signed up for. So what I think I'm hearing, and at least what I think I just heard from Deputy Mayor, was keep things as it is for the time being, revisit in a few months. I mean,
Yeah, I am concerned about, as you mentioned, the variants. I genuinely hope they don't return, but we have to be realistic about people's health concerns right now. So I think online makes sense.
There are basically 2 of us that show up consistently, and I'd love to see more participation.
Agreed. Councilmember Shrubnik?
Well, and I think supporting the keeping it kind of as it is for now. I mean, just, you know, we're hybrid for these meetings and the proportion of people that are providing public comment online versus in person, I mean, there's no comparison. So, you know, there does seem to be a preference at the moment for online. Yeah, so I'm comfortable, at least for the moment, keeping it as it is.
Councilmember Kugler?
I generally agree with what Councilmember Shrubnik is pointing out. Like we do have a lot of online participation. So I think that's an advantage. I guess I'm just wondering about Thursday, like if Thursday is not a good day and we thought it was canceled, like it doesn't seem like that makes sense to continue holding it on Thursday.
I think
on
one
the
of
other
the
extreme,
public that it was a good idea to hold it on Thursday.
Yeah, I think the thought was that, you know, it might be a different crowd of folks that we see normally in these early morning meetings. But I know for at least, you know, for my sake, you know, I've had issues where just I couldn't be home in time to do it or work got in the way or other things too. It's been, I thought it would be relatively easy to sign up for 1 or 2 of those, and I've been having issues with them personally, as much as I'd like to be there. So do we want to keep the Thursday? I mean, when is the next one supposed to be? Sorry, just flipping through my calendar right now. I think it's 3rd Thursday.
It's first Thursdays and third Saturdays. First Thursdays at 5:30, third Saturdays at 8 a.m.
First Thursday, so the next one is in August?
Third Saturday. So that would be.
No, I'm talking about Thursday, sorry.
Oh, okay.
And Saturdays we've been doing. You said first
Thursdays
one?
at 5:30. People are trying to get home from work at 5:30.
Yeah. But I also don't think anybody wants to do like 6 or 7 when people are having dinner. So maybe there was some wisdom to doing early mornings, even if it's not my favorite time. Do we want to revert back to, what was it, third Saturdays and first Mondays, or what was the old schedule, Rob? Do you remember?
It was third Mondays and first. Well, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was first Mondays.
Third Saturday, first Monday.
That's right.
Oh yeah, there we are. I have a canceled Monday, coffee with council, 7:30 on the 1st of August. Do we want to reinstate that for a bit and then revisit in a few months? Any objections? Okay.
So we're going back to the old way.
Yeah, let's go back to the one. The Thursday just wasn't working, unfortunately.
Okay.
And then we'll check back in a couple months, look at going either in person, hybrid, see where things stand. Councilmember Kugler?
Sorry, I did want to mention support for maybe a sign-up sheet. I think having that physically and then seeing the whole maybe year or several months at a time would be helpful.
Yeah. In a perfect world, we're all taking 1 or 2 a quarter, you know, and kind of rotating a bit.
Was something you'd pass around in this meeting?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to have something to pass around the meeting versus on the phone, you know, or on the calendar invites that we're getting. So if we could have that in the next meeting or two, that'd be good. Thank you. All right, yeah, Deputy Mayor.
I had a thought too, and I don't know if, I'm just going to say it. Maybe it would be interesting to, if we switch to this scheduling format, say which council members will be in attendance, you know, coffee with council, Councilmember File, Mayor Herbig will be in attendance. Please, you know, something along those lines, I think would be good for our community to know who's going to be there and be able to have an opportunity to have varied perspectives.
Agreed. All right, council comments. I'm just going to go down the row. Councilmember Baker.
Yeah, since I now have COVID, I don't really have anything. My travels have been curtailed.
Feel better. Councilmember Kukla.
Just a comment. Committees have been postponed or kind of, I feel like, rearranged due to like summer schedule. So ETP and STP, we haven't been meeting and we'll meet, I think, late August. And I also just wanted to really comment on the vandalism that has been showing up in different parts of our city. Super disappointing, you know, and discouraging. And on top of that, a waste of, I think, taxpayer dollars and staff time to have to clean up and address. And so I hope that we'll see an end to that soon. And hopefully, you know, someone will speak up or step up if they see anything happening. But I want to applaud our staff for going above and beyond to address that while they're also juggling a lot of cleanup and tidying up. That just is a normal part of summer. So.
Councilmember Shrubnik.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that as well. Not only the vandalism, but the, you know, threatening behavior as part of that with the CareNet facility. It's just incredibly disheartening and disappointing that people, and maybe there aren't people in our community, but people close by our community would resort to that level of harassment and vandalism. Of course, we had it at CareNet and at Log Boom Park, and it isn't legal. And of course, that's, you know, we don't need a resolution to be against it because we already have rules about that. But if we didn't, I would certainly have a resolution because it's, as I said, it just really, really disappointing.
Councilmember File.
Thank you. I'll start with some happy fun. I visited Log Boom recently with my family, had a lovely time. The new bathrooms, their location is kind of an interesting spot. You have to maybe hold your nose a little bit when you pass by, but it's okay. It's wonderful to be able to build a castle in the sand, watch families play and enjoy and have fun. There's been a lot more lake water use, which is lovely. Happy to see. I'm super disappointed about the vandalism myself. I've been thinking a lot about what our shoreline court judges mentioned to us in our last meeting, which was that in Kenmore, we don't offer or have community service offerings as something they can attach to. And that might be something we might want to consider. I see it as something that could be a benefit to our community and turning a wrong around for a right. On the Hazardous Waste Committee, the MCC Hazardous Waste Committee has been going through restructuring. They finally made an announcement to the community. So while there's some internal restructuring and reshuffling, there aren't going to be any losses of jobs to public health, environment, or otherwise. Service and delivery is going to stay the same, which is good. And this into July, I'm going to be going to the National League of Cities Summer Leadership Conference in Georgia. And since we're going on break in August, I'll be headed to the National League of Cities Women's Conference in Sacramento mid-August. So I'm looking forward to both of those opportunities.
Deputy Mayor.
I just have one comment, or just something that I saw online that I thought that City of Kenmore may want to consider for 4th of July celebration, which was City of Redmond had a drone light show for the 4th of July that was very well received. So I'd be curious if we might be interested in exploring that, finding out what the expense is. I love tradition, you know, and 4th of July fireworks, but I did see that and I thought it might be worth exploring. So I just wanted to say, yeah, there are community members that might really appreciate it, but there are a lot of community members that probably prefer fireworks, but it looked pretty cool. So I just want to plant that seed that maybe we should just be aware and consider it. That's it for me tonight. Thank you.
All right. You know, everybody else here said what I was going to say. The vandalism is really disappointing, and especially the graffiti, the tagging is ridiculous. And I hope that we can get that cleaned up as much as possible. And the vandalism at the bathrooms at Log Boom is also really disappointing. We have a toilet there that is non-functional, which is unfortunate, because as somebody who went down to Log Boom just a few days ago with my daughter and had a wonderful time, we're having more people show up there, and we have bathrooms that that aren't workable, which is disappointing as we enter summer. Anyway, since there's nothing more to come before us, Kenmore City Council stands adjourned.
Bye, thank you.
Good night, council members.
Thanks, Anastasia.
And Brian, thank you very much.